Welcome back, y'all. I am excited to tell you yet another ghost story, and tonight we're going to go back to my home state. There's this small, unincorporated community there known as Taylortown. But while there ain't too much really happening up there, it has become known for this one unique landmark that, of course, is haunted. It's an old, decaying church bell tower that survived a 1947 fire that destroyed the rest of the church. According to local lore, the beautiful red ruby brick church that once stood in Taylortown was built in the early 20th century by a wealthy plantation owner who lived nearby in Bossier Parish. The man's daughter had recently become engaged to be married, and he was so excited and proud of the young girl that he built this church specifically for her wedding day. So construction began and plans were made. But when the day finally arrived, the groom failed to appear. Anxiously, the young bride waited for her beloved atop the bell tower, her heart breaking a little more with each and every moment that passed, until finally she received horrific news. Her beau had been killed in a car accident on the way to make his vows. The girl's dreams of a bright future flashed before her eyes, and some say that it was in that moment she died of a broken heart. But according to most, what really happened was far more horrific. They say the young bride was so grief-stricken she flung herself down the stairwell of that bell tower, meeting her death at the bottom. Of course, the girl's father was devastated. This day was meant to be one of the happiest of his life, but now he was overcome with grief, pain, and anger. Unable to process these overwhelming emotions, he set a torch to that church in an attempt to remove every memory of the pain that he felt on that awful day. And when he was done and the blaze died down, all that was left was the old brick bell tower where his daughter took her final breath. That tower still remains today, a decaying remnant of a once beautiful structure. And of course, some say that the young woman is still there as well. Local lore claims that she can sometimes be seen under the light of the full moon, her apparition standing in the tower in a tattered wedding dress, watching and waiting for her beloved to arrive. Unfortunately, he never does. Now, while Taylortown's bell tower has made it a prime location for ghost hunters and legend trippers alike, in reality, this is one of those ghost stories with very little truth to support it. The old church did in fact burn down in 1947, but it wasn't some rich plantation owner who built it. Rather, it was the local Taylortown congregation who raised the funds themselves with, quote, bazaars, tacky parties, and ice cream festivals. John Dortch designed this church, and in 1906, construction began. In fact, a 1993 article in Shreveport newspaper, The Times, describes the church succinctly, quote, when completed, the new Taylortown Methodist Church was a fine edifice. Its entrance was through the tower, which stood at the southwest corner of the building. 4 Gothic arched windows ran along either side wall, and 2 more faced west from the front wall. At the northwest corner of the church was a chimney for the furnace. A limestone cross set into the front wall completed the facade, which was trimmed all around with limestone as well. The bell tower never received the spire apparently intended for it, but was instead crowned by a little pyramid-shaped roof cap. A bell hung in the belfry, and narrow Gothic windows peered out at the fields of the surrounding plantations and toward the highway and the 2 trees planted on either side of the road leading up to the church. Well, upon its completion, this church wasn't used for weekly services, but rather once a month, a circuit pastor came to preach here. And as a result, the congregation never really grew to a size much more than about 30. So in the 1930s, as the walls and roof began to decay, it was entirely abandoned. The following decade, it got used just to store hay until 1947, when it did in fact catch fire. Whether that was accidental or intentional is unknown, but it's true that all remains of this structure was the old bell tower that's purportedly haunted. So where did this story come from? The earliest source that we could locate referencing this tale of the heartbroken bride and her distraught father was actually in October of 1969, only a little over 2 decades following the church fire. The Shreveport Journal ran an article titled History of Lone Steeple. And of the truth of this legend, it claims very simply, quote, our source notes that one young woman from the group whose efforts helped finance the church structure was married in the church soon after its completion, but that this appears to be the only connection between the story and actual events. So I'm going to ask y'all, does this mean it ain't haunted? I don't know. Just because this story isn't true doesn't stop the facts that folks continue to see some awful creepy stuff out there in that field under the light of the moon. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you've been listening to Southern Gothic.